Hey guys, so I decided I was gonna make this little quick video before I go into work, since I just saw it and I had some thoughts on it, so I thought I'd just make a little reaction video and talk about it. So this is from the Hollywood Reporter, and I'll put the link down in the description if you want to go check it out. So this is Ray Fisher opens up about Justice League, Joss Whedon and Warner's. I don't believe some of these people are fit for leaders. So over the past year, the actor has assailed the filmmaker and studio in harsh but cryptic tweets for what he says was racist and inappropriate conduct. I'm not so indebted to Hollywood that I haven't been willing to put myself out there. Ray Fisher is ready to talk ever since June 2020 when he fired off a tweet accusing Joss Whedon of gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable conduct on the set of Justice League. 33-year-old actor has used social media and a series of interviews to lob serious allegations of racist behavior and cover up at Warner Brothers. For Fisher, who plays Cyborg in the film, the issue is no longer so much what happens on the set in 2017 after director Zack Snyder was replaced by Joss Whedon, though he's ready to explain that too. His unrelenting focus in recent months has been the way executives, first at Warner Media Studios and then his parents, Warner Media, handled allegations raised by himself and others. Warner Media has previously said that remedial action was taken as a result of this investigation, but hasn't elaborated. Spokesperson tells THR that for privacy and legal reasons, our policy is not publicly disclose the findings as a result of the investigation. Yeah, well, considering how, literally nobody except for what Whedon has seemed to be punished, so what the hell did they do? What were the results of the investigation? Catherine Forrest, a former federal judge who conducted the Warner Media probe, tells THR in a statement that in interviews with more than 80 witnesses, he found no credible support for claims of racial animus or racial insensitivity. A Warner Media spokesperson notes that the company made extraordinary effort to accommodate Mr. Fisher's concerns about the investigation to ensure its fullness and fairness, and it has complete confidence in the investigation process and forced conclusions. So was this the person that Warner Brothers hired to investigate? Didn't Ray want to go with an outside, a third party, to do the investigation and not have Warner Brothers pretty much investigate themselves? Fisher was raised by a single mother and his grandmother in Lawnside, New Jersey, a community that he notes was the first self-governing black municipality. There we go. North of the Mason-Dixon line. He says he felt a new series of urgencies to speak out when the pandemic hit and Black Lives Matter protests took the streets. And also, from that previous paragraph, is this chick white, the one doing the investigating? Because just because you didn't find any racial insensitivities doesn't mean that they don't in fact exist. It's just that you didn't, because you're not, of a different race, you might not experience it, or you might not know that there are problems with this. To Fisher, who had few screen credits, playing the half-man, half-machine Cyborg, the first black superhero in DC film universe. With both a huge career break and a major responsibility, Justice League was released in 2017, the year before Marvel broke ground with Black Panther. He was mindful that the film was overseen almost entirely by white executives and filmmakers, while Fisher has dropped details. And named names. Outsiders have struggled to understand. How did Whedon incur his wrath? Did Fisher really decline to participate in the investigation that was launched in person? Response to his own complaints, as Warner claimed in September, was Fisher fighting a righteous battle or one where he set out as a path that appeared to have cost him a place in the DC film universe? That's also another point. Why the hell would he do this? I mean, he doesn't have any, really influence in Hollywood, so it's not like he can use his name to protect himself or his status to protect himself. So what exactly would he get from just making these allegations? He even refused to do a Cyborg movie because Johns was involved. So once again, he gave up a chance for, a big movie. Why? If not the fact that he, what he experienced, he doesn't want to go through that again. Now, in the hours of conversation, Fisher tells his side much of his previous reluctance to spill out the story, he says, arose because he didn't and still doesn't want to expose the identity of others who share the stories with him and investigators. I'm not looking to have any witnesses lose their jobs, he said. Now, in many hours of conversation, Fisher tells his side much of his previous reluctance to spell out the story, he says, arose because he didn't and still doesn't want to expose the identity of others who share the stories with him and investigators. Oh, I already read that part. Those include some who wouldn't seem to have any worries about job security, Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa. Others who were not involved with Justice League also spoke to Fisher, and in some cases, investigators about experiences with Whedon and Johns, who was co-chairman of DC Films and producer on the film. They included Christina Carpenter, who recently wrote on social media of Whedon's alleged abusiveness on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and the individuals who have worked with Johns on Sci-Fi's Krypton. Fisher got Warner to start an investigation more than 2 years after the first version of the film was released, but he soon found the process to be suspicious. The studio and his parent company seemed to be focused on protecting top executives, he said. The process moved in starts and stops, and when he felt forced to ramp up his public protest, the studio's response with what Fish called a deliberate smear. Warner maintains it has done everything necessary to address Fish's concern. He still wants an apology. Yeah, still waiting to see what exactly Warner Brothers found. I mean, they're like, oh, well, we want to, we want to keep people's identity or what. Talked about privacy and shit like that, but they don't seem to have any problem trying to smear, Ray in social, using the comic website. So don't really seem like they give two shits about privacy. So this is a tweet by Ray Fisher. Joss Whedon's on-set treatment of the cast and crew of Justice League was gross, abusive, unprofessional, completely unacceptable. He was enabled in many ways by Johns and Berg. Accountability is greater than entertainment. In May 2017, Fisher was walking into a movie in New York when he got a call from Zack Snyder that left him stunned. Snyder was leaving Justice League, citing his daughter's suicide. Sources said Snyder was under extreme pressure at the time. Yeah, that's another thing. I don't know if it's in this article later on, but Warner Brothers talked about how Ray is being manipulated by Zack Snyder to kind of become the head of DC Films, which I find highly funny because you have to question, why the hell would he want that? After years of abuse by, these fuckers at Warner Brothers, they've treated Zack like shit, and it kind of, the tone they have, it's like, oh, Lyman, he wants to take over for DC Films. And it's just, you have any leg to stand on when it comes to fucking trying to paint anybody in a bad light. You fuckers fucked him over, you lie constantly. But yeah, sure. Now you want to try to make us believe that, Ray Fisher's shady. You bitches sit here and lie all the fucking time. You put out like 50 movies you say you're gonna do, and then later say that, well, nope, that's not gonna happen. So I can fucking, I'm more liable to believe Ray Fisher than fucking Warner Brothers about, the truth. I'll go back to article. The studio was unhappy with the reception and box office performance of his previous film, Batman v Superman, and with Justice League footage already shot, now insist on a lighter touch. Warner's also asked Snyder to produce a 2-hour cut that he had wrenching time delivering, though eventually did. You know what the funny thing is about this? It talks about how they wanted a lighter touch, And then they cut out a lot of the moments in Justice League that humanized and really made the characters connect, or at least Whedon did. And so they brought in this piece of shit to reshoot a lot of the films to put it lighter, and they just ripped out all the more humanizing moments and just put in shitty jokes. So yeah, that's what we got with these fuckers. When they get what they want. Warner also asked Snyder to produce a 2-hour cut they had invented time delivering, though eventually did. Ultimately, Snyder left, and Whedon, who had written and directed Avengers and had already been brought in to help brighten Justice League's tone, took the helm. The Justice League that Fisher had signed up for was a far cry from the film that Whedon ended up finishing. Snyder had Fisher talk at length and with screenwriter Terrio, because before there was even a script, Zack and I always considered Cyborg's story to be the heart of the movie. Terrio said, THR. He has the most pronounced character arc of all the heroes, beginning with from a place of despair, ending with the feeling that he is whole and he is loved. And Terrio says Snyder took the portrayal of a first black superhero in a DC film universe very seriously, adding, with a white writer and a white director, we both thought having the perspective of an actor of color was really important, and Ray really is really good with story and character, so we become a partner in creating Victor, referring to the character's given name. See, that's another thing. Ray is very loyal to Zack, and from what we hear, you can understand why, because Zack has always been very accommodating when it comes to, Ray and getting his input on the character that he's playing, because him, a white man, may not have the same experience or the same viewpoints as, an actual black man. So it's not exactly surprising that he's so extremely loyal to Zack, and confirms why he said that, if Zack or, I don't remember the other director's name, he said if they were to come back, he would come back for a Cyborg movie. The new filming proceeded under Whedon, says Fisher. He came to feel that he had to explain some of the most basic points of what would be offensive to the black community. As the Fisher's reps were told that Whedon planned to make major revisions to the film, he flew from New Jersey to meet with the filmmaker in LA. When the two met at a bar, Fisher said Whedon was tiptoeing around the fact that everything was changing. As he left the meeting, Fisher was handed the revised script, which he read twice on the plane back. Gone was Cyborg's dramatic backstory, his relationship with his mother, his living scenes with her son were eliminated, as with the accident that killed her led to the transformation. The material was later restored in the Snyder Cut version of the film that's streamed on HBO Max. It represents that his parents were two genius-level black people, Fisher said. We don't see that every day. I don't think Warner Brothers has ever fucking addressed, what Whedon has done and said on set. Or the accusations, I guess. Not, really fully, it was always felt like they were just kind of offhandedly dismiss them. And then when Zack or Ray came out and with his accusations, people who have worked with him on set started coming out and talking about their experiences with him as well. And of course, it typically was either minority people, people of color, and also women. They've talked about their experiences with him on set, and it's been negative. And yet, I don't believe they've, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe they've addressed it seriously. They just seem to want to just move on from everything. Whedon declined to comment for this piece. Well, of course he does. Fisher turned to Johns, who said he presented himself as a kind of mediator, but Fisher says the ultimate response was, "We can't make Joss mad." Publicist Howard Bragman, who represented Johns, denied that, but it says Johns recalled suggesting that any creative pictures should happen when Joss Whedon was not preoccupied, so he would be most receptive. Sure. Once Whedon got involved, Fisher said that Johns told him that it was problematic that Cyborg smiled only twice in the movie. Fisher said he later learned from a witness who participated in the investigation that Johns and other top executives, including then DC Films co-chairman John Berg and Warner Studios chief Toby Emmerich, had discussions in which they said they could not have an angry black man at the center of the film. John's rep responds that once the chairman of the studio mandated a brighter tone for the film, all further discussions centered on adding joy and hopefulness to all 6 characters. There are always conversations about avoiding one's stereotypes of race, gender, or sexuality. Any stereotype of race, so you having 2 black people, or well, three black characters who are pretty much geniuses, those are stereotypes. Yeah, you're talking about the see, here's the thing, they say avoids any stereotypes of race, gender, or sexuality, and yet that pretty much goes back into supports Ray's claim of them saying they didn't want an angry black man, because they could probably fucking claim that, well, that was a stereotype. Yeah, because having a black character who has had a traumatic experience, who's lost his mother, and then, well, later his father, and who is dealing with that is apparently, I guess, just an angry black man. It's just, that fucking statement kind of pretty much confirms what he said about that. There's always conversations about avoiding any stereotypes of race, gender. Oh yeah, we saw how you treated Wonder Woman, you piece of shit, Whedon. You know, it's pretty obvious that this is just bullshitting. Johns told Fisher he should play the characters less like Frankenstein and more like the kind-hearted Quasimodo. That's not offensive at all. Fisher said that in order to demonstrate the look he wanted, Johns dipped his shoulder in, which struck Fisher as a servile posture. To Fisher, there was a big difference between portraying a character that was born with a disability versus one that was transformed by trauma. And he felt Cyborg was kind of a modern-day Frankenstein. I didn't have any intention of playing him as a jovial, cathedral-cleaning individual, he says. John's representative responds, how do you say that name? I always just go with John's because it's easier. Gave a note using a fictional character as an example of a sympathetic man who is unhappy and has an inclination to hide from the world, but one whom the audience roots for because he has a courageous heart. Yeah, maybe try to find some other character other than Quasimodo. Fisher told Johns it might be one thing for a non-black person to write a character for a comic, but it was another for a black actor to portray that character on screen. It was like he was assuming how black people respond rather than taking the advice from the only black person, as far as I know, with any kind of creative impact on the project, Fisher said. Yeah, that's funny. They talked about not wanting to do stereotypes, and yet completely ignore any input from the actor, the black actor. Or Momoa and Cal they have race concerns, and it's obvious. Momoa has been nothing but supportive of Ray and defensive of him, and Gal Gadot, we know that she did raise issues with the higher ups. So yeah, it seems like they're not fucking taking any input from any of the, diverse people on set, any of the women or people of color on set. So this whole bullshit about them trying to avoid stereotypes and trying to be sensitive is just that bullshit. Fisher says Johns did not yield. That was the last creative conversation about anything that Johns and I had. I knew I was on my own, Fisher said. Johns' rep denied that he ever dismissed any comments, adding that Fisher knew Johns, whose spokesperson required that he be identified as Japanese American. That's when you know that they're just trying to play, the whole identity. They're trying to fucking distract and try to make John's seem more, I guess, diverse, since that literally came out of nowhere, and he's never fucking asked to be identified as Lebanese American until now, when he's being accused of racism by, an actor. So now they want to put in that line. Make sure they put in that line. It's just about as subtle as the CEO of Warner Brothers mentioning that Hamada is Asian, to try to deflect from any accusations of racism on set. So yeah, that's not fucking subtle at all. Has involved traditionally all-white DC properties like Shazam, Justice Society of America, and others into diverse groups of heroes, and extensive work as a comic book author. Yeah, I will admit I haven't read a lot of John's works, but the fact that he's trying to boast about, I have traditionally all-white DC characters. I made them into diverse groups. Well, I'm not sure exactly, but did you actually fucking put diversity in, or did you change one person's, skin color or shit like that, but completely ignored the actual, I guess, quality of the character? Did you actually have them as a good character, or was this all just fucking performative? The fact that he's boasting about it, pretty much, I get the feeling that it's nothing but performative. Justice League producer Chuck Roven, a veteran on DC superhero films dating back to Batman Begins in 2005, says, I fully empathize Ray that his character arc was significantly altered and shortened. I also collaborated with Johns over many years and found him to be gracious and humble man. Johns took it upon himself to put Cyborg in Justice League comics in the first place, and has written more than a character than any other individual except for the creator. He loves character Cyborg. Yeah, sure. That's why you fucking butchered or allowed Whedon to butcher Cyborg in his movie. You pretty much just made him into a shell of a character. We didn't know jack shit about Cyborg in the theatrical cut. And yet he's still defending Whedon, so it's not like he, is bothered by that fact. All these tensions were playing out during an extremely stressful time at Studio AT&T's $85 billion acquisition of Time Warner, which was announced in October 2016 but didn't close until June 2018, was still pending. Justice League was a $300 million prospect, and it was troubled. Warner's had not been able to match Disney's consistent success with Marvel movie, probably because you jackasses fucking didn't want to wait. You think the MCU was able to build up the success overnight? No, they did it over how many movies? They've gotten people to watch their films simply because they're used to them. But these dumbasses, they wanted to immediately make billions of dollars off their, fourth movie? It's plainly obvious these dumbasses don't know what they're doing. Fisher felt that some of the studio executives' decision-making was driven by fear of losing their jobs. Tension only escalated when the issue of having Cyborg say "Booyah" arose. That phrase had become a signature of the character thanks to an animated Teen Titans show. The character has never said it in the comics or in the original script. Fisher says that Johns had approached Snyder about including the line, but the director didn't want any catchphrases. He managed to situation by putting the word in some signs in his version of the film as an Easter egg, but John's rep said the entire studio believed the B-out line was a fun moment of signage. I don't even know how that word. God, these people are so fucking stupid. Fisher says he didn't see the word in itself as an issue, but he thought it played differently in live-action film than that animated series, and he thought the black character in pop culture was the defining phrases. Gary Coleman, what you're talking about, Willis. Jimmy Walker's Dynamite, and as no one else in the film had a catchphrase, he said it seemed weird to have only black characters say that. It's once again, they want to act like they were so progressive, and yet won't fucking take any input from the actual black the black actor. With reshots underway, Fisher said we raised the issue again. Johns told me Cyborg had a catchphrase. He told him. Fisher says he expressed his objections, and it seemed the matter was dropped until Berg, the co-chairman of DC Films and producer of the project, took him to dinner. This is one of the most expensive movies Warner's have ever made, Berg said, according to Fisher. If the CEO of AT&T has $1 and that $1 went sideways, say beyond the film, and we don't have a take of that, I could lose my job. Fuck off. If you literally lose your job because you don't include a catchphrase in a fucking movie, then yeah. There's a lot of fucked up shit up there, and they should probably get fucking, they shouldn't be in this fucking industry. Fisher responded that he knew if he filmed it line, it would end up in a movie, and he expressed skepticism that film's fate rested on Cyborg saying booyah. Great point, but it's run by dumbasses, so not surprising. But he shot the take as he arrived on set. He says, Whedon stretched out his arms and said a line from Hamlet in a mocking tone, speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounce it to you. Fisher replies, Josh, don't, I'm not in the mood. As he left the set after saying just that one phrase for the cameras, he said Whedon called it, nice work, Ray. Considering how people have talked about how he's treated them on set, I believe that fully, that he was a piece of shit. He likes to claim he's a feminist, Whedon does, but you see the way he fucking treats women. Even his ex-wife has talked about how big of a dick he is. Even before the line was shot, Fisher's agent had called Warner Film Studios chief Emmerich to raise concerns about what was happening on set. After Fisher arrived in Los Angeles for additional photography in summer 2017, Johns asked him to come to DC office in Burbank. When they met in the conference room, Fisher said he had apologized to Whedon for a part in conflict which had gone on the hopes of preventing a real rupture with DC team. Johns responded that having agents call Emmerich was just not cool. Fisher recalls, he said, I consider us to be friends, which he knows we are not. And I just don't want you to have a bad name for yourself in the business. Fisher took that as a threat. John Rapp says he never made a threat, but told Fisher that creative differences were not normally taken to the head of film studios by an actor's agent. Well, considering how you jackasses aren't listening to him, and it does feel like Ray wasn't comfortable. You know, he was feeling very iffy about it. So, yeah, I mean, he should take it to higher ups. If he's not comfortable, you know, being and interacting with, you know, Johns. Fisher was not the only Justice League star who was unhappy. Sources said Whedon clashed with all the stars of the film, including Jeremy Irons. And one Justice League star ended up taking her complaints not only to the head of the film studio, but also to chairman of Warner Brothers. Knowledgeable source says Godot several concerns with the revised version of the film, including issues with the characters being more aggressive than the character in Wonder Woman. She wanted to make the characters flow from one movie to the next. The biggest clash, sources says, come when Whedon pushed Godot to record lines she didn't like, threatening to harm Godot's career and disperse Wonder Woman's director, Patty Jenkins. While Fisher declines to discuss any of what transpired with Godot, a witness at the production who later spoke to investigators say that after one clash, Joss was bragging that he had it out with Gal. He told her he's the writer, she's going to shut up and say lines, and he can make her look incredibly stupid in a movie. Well, that was, you know, he was successful with that. Knowledgeable source says Godot and Jenkins went to battle, culminating in a meeting with then Warner chairman Kevin Tahara. I butchered that, I know. After the comment, Godot says in their statement, I had my issues with Whedon and Warner Brothers handled it in a timely manner. 3 months after Justice League hit theaters, Whedon exited Warner Brothers' Batgirl project. Batgirl was such an exciting project, and Warner Brothers DC, such a collaborative, supportive project that it took me months to realize I really didn't have a story, he said at the time. Sure. When Justice League opened in November 2017, the film was panned. It had a 40% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and grossed a disappointing $658 million worldwide. Berg exited his job that December. Johns departed the following June. But Whedon was still part of the Warner Media Universe in July 2008. A few months after he left Batgirl, HBO greenlit his drama The Nevers straight to series, but in November 2020, just a couple of weeks before, Warner Media said it would take remedial steps after its investigation into Justice League. Whedon left that project too. HBO chief Casey Blythe has said there was no complaints about Whedon's behavior on that series. This time Whedon said he was not up to physical challenge making such a huge show during a global pandemic. Warner's issued a clip. We have parted ways with Joss Whedon. Sure. After Justice League, Fisher went on to play Mahershala's Ali's son in the third season of True Detective, which he called a great experience. Please don't hate me for butchering that name. But in the coming months, he could hear fresh reports that had gone on behind the scenes on Justice League, including Avery Blackman conversation of allegations involving John's. Two individuals who worked on Sci-Fi's Krypton TV series talked to Fisher about events that had taken place on the series. Multiple sources tell THR that show's creators were passionate about doing such non-traditional castings, and that reggae Gene Page, who would go on to become a breakout star in Bridgerton, had auditioned for the role of Superman's grandfather, but Johns, who was overseeing the project, said Superman could not have a black grandfather. The creators also wanted to make one superhero character, Adam Strange, gay or bisexual, but the sources said Johns vetoed the idea. John celebrated and supported LGBT characters, including Batwoman, who in 2016 was introduced as LGBTQ in a comic book series co-written by Johns, said Johns reps in the MMO. Johns also pitched Warner's on developing a television show around the first LGBTQ lead DC superhero TV series he's had as his role of Superman's godfather. The rep said John believed fans expected the character to look like a young Henry Cavill. So what you're saying, he's all for LGBT characters because he was involved in Batwoman, but won't include make one of the characters gay, even though he even has less of a role than say Batwoman. Once again, just feels like performative bullshit. Yeah, I really believe he pitched Warner Brothers series about the, LGBTQ character. Yeah, and he says as a role for Superman's grandfather, he wanted someone who looked like a young Henry Cavill. Why? Either one, you want to go for try to copy, Henry Cavill Superman, which, considering how Warner Brothers has, pretty much distanced himself from that character, you wonder why. And I heard that it was supposed to be a prequel. Well, if it's supposed to be a prequel, then why does Zod end up black, played by a black actor? I mean, it's just so shady and weird. So sources spoke to Fisher around the time were willing to talk to a Warner's investigator. Among them was writer Nadria Tucker, who tweeted February 24th, "I haven't spoken to Johns since the day on Krypton when he tried to tell me what it is not a black thing." So once again, we're getting, Johns and extension Whedon. They're talking over, black actors about what is, black. Tucker told THR that Johns objected when the black female character's hairstyles changed in scenes that took place on different days. "I said, black women, we tend to change our hair frequently. It's not weird, it's a black thing," she said. And he said, "No, it's not." So once again, they talk about, he talks about how he wasn't racist, but when you continually fucking talk over, a black person, what their experience is, and act like what it's like to be black, that's a problem. John's spokesperson says, "We are standard continuity note. What were standard continuity notes for a scene are being spun in a way that is not only personally offensive to Johns, but to people that know who he is, know the work he's done, and know the life he lives. As Johns has personally seen firsthand, the the painful effects of racial stereotypes concerning here and other cultural stereotypes, having been married to a black woman who he was with for a decade, and second wife who's Asian American, as well as a son who's mixed race. So they're pulling the race card. The whole, oh, my friend's black, except now it's, oh, my ex-wife is black, and my current wife is Asian. But here's the thing. If someone says that what you're saying is offensive, or someone says that from their experience, this isn't how their race is typically portrayed, or how it's just this. If a person of color says, well, this isn't the experience that we have, and then this other person who has no idea what it's like to be that race says, well, no, it's not, then yeah, that's a fucking problem once again. So he continued to act like just because you don't say a slur or shit like that, then somehow he wasn't in the wrong. And considering how he reacts to all this shit, he's just making it worse and worse. On late June 2020, Fisher went public with his dissatisfaction of what he views as Warner's interaction. For the report, Warner sources contended that Fisher was being manipulated by Snyder, who hoped to reclaim control of the DC film universe. Pretty rich coming from Warner Brothers. The fuckers who pressured Zack so much that he left, because he couldn't cope with the pressures that Warner Brothers putting on them, and the fact that his daughter just killed herself. So he left, they butchered his movie, and then they slap his name on it and let him take the fall for this shit. So yeah, they can fuck off with this bullshit about him being manipulative. And even if he wants to, make his movie, he deserves it after the shit they put him through. They're just pissed that he doesn't let them walk, he doesn't let them walk all over him. That's what they're fucking pissed about. Fisher says that the assertion that a black man who would not have his own agency is just as racist as the conversation Warner's leadership is having about the Justice League reshoots. I'm going to explain at every turn during this process, and that is what has led us to this point. Had they taken me seriously as they should have from the beginning, they would not have made many foolish mistakes as they did in the process. Snyder denies any role in influencing Fisher. What's funny is that Fisher has said that he had no contact with Zack about 18 months because he didn't want to bother him, because he knew that he would, he had family tragedy. So that's kind of bullshit as well. Not only that, Warner Brothers had just spun this out of fucking control with their arrogance. All Ray was, he just wanted to be acknowledged that, just think about it. Ray, he talks about how great Zack was at, taking what he said into consideration. He got his input as a black person, how to write this black character. And then we get fucking Whedon who comes in and fucking completely ignores that and, pretty much erases all his fucking storyline. People complain about how he's bitter that he erased, his role was cut. Yeah, his fucking role was cut. He would be pissed, and he has a right to be pissed. It's just infuriating that people continue to try to act like Ray's just this diva when he's not. You can't say that, oh, he's not racist, when they completely cut this black character, not only him, but, the character's mother, she was completely erased. His father, his role was cut to the bone as well. They completely erased another black woman, but sure, this isn't supposed to be about race, right? Tweeting footage of himself racing Whedon at Comic-Con 2017, Fisher notes, I'd like to take a moment to forcibly retract every bit of the statement. His earlier words had been based on studio-supplied talking points, he said. In a subsequent tweet, he said Whedon's on-set behavior had been gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable, adding he was enabled in many ways by Johns and Berg. He did not elaborate. Berg told Variety it was categorically untrue that we enabled any unprofessional behavior. He added that Fisher was upset about saying "booyah" well-known saying of Cyborg in the anime series. Yeah, it's funny because if I recall correctly, he talked about that. He didn't want him to say that phrase because he didn't want that to be like his only, from what I kind of interpreted what he said. He didn't want that to be the only thing that people remembered him for, this one catchphrase. And so he didn't want that to be in the movie. And Zach listened to him. So once again, he has right to be pissed because they would not fucking listen to him. You know, we got these two white men, Zack Snyder and the writer, Terrio, I believe it was, consulting the black actor about how to write this black character, and then you get Whedon coming in with his arrogant bullshit and completely ruining that. He should be fucking pissed. As Fisher continues to air grievances on social media, in so many ways he began to suspect that when he tweeted, the studio would put out an announcement to distract from his message. On July 1st, the day that Fisher tweeted about Whedon's behavior, Deadline published an exclusive saying Warner's were making a live-action Frosty the Snowman movie with Aquaman star Jason Momoa voicing the iconic snowman. A week later, Momoa pushed back an Instagram post. I just think it's fucked up that people release a fake Frosty announcement without my permission to try to distract from Ray Fisher speaking up about the shitty way that we were treated on just the reshoots, he writes. Serious stuff went down. It needs to be investigated and people need to be held accountable. Warner says that the untitled Snowman comedy remains in development. So, another actor outright publicly says that there was abuse on set, that they were treated like shit, and that he supports Ray Fisher. So this isn't just Ray Fisher being a diva. This is literally people coming out about the treatment. In early July, Fisher spoke with Walter Hamada, who had taken reins at Warner Brother. He said Hamada called Joss an asshole and said, I'm just looking to get past anything to do with Justice League. Joss isn't here anymore and I don't plan on hiring him again. But according to Fisher, Hamada said he did not believe Johns had done anything wrong. I don't know John Berg very well. I know Joss was difficult, but Johns, Ray, he's really getting dragged through the mud, and I'm sure you're getting your share of hate too. Fisher responds, I'm fine with hate because I know I'm telling the truth. He asked for an investigation. Later that month, the studio's HR department contacted Fisher. He said he spoke with two executives for about 2 hours. He added that he offered specific allegations of abuse behavior towards himself and others, and provided the names of some witnesses willing to be contacted, but he was very cognizant that HR departments were often known to show more allegiance to employers than the complaining parties. He became even more suspicious, he says, when witnesses started telling him that they had not been contacted. Fisher requested an independent investigator and said SAG-AFTRA had to have a rep with him in the process. In mid-August, Warner HR executive told Fisher that an outside investigator had been approved, but his guard went up when the exec said, we really like him, we've worked with him before. Still, Fisher tweeted that it represented a massive step forward. So already, they're getting someone in there that Warner Brothers likes. To investigate Warner Brothers. But then a Warner's veteran told Fisher not to trust the investigation if a particular studio executive was overseeing it because that person had previously helped sweep misconduct under the rug. When he spoke to the investigator, Fisher asked how many times he had worked for the studio. He declined to answer. Fisher asked who was overseeing the inquiry and said he would have an issue if it was the executive named by his contact. He still got no answer, feeling that the situation felt pretty dodgy. Fisher went no further. Yeah, pretty much. He's been keeping everybody informed what's happening on Twitter, so he's commented how he stopped. I guess, Warner Brothers said that he stopped participating in the investigation and then Fisher came on and said that he stopped because he wanted a third party, and Warner Brother was, working with someone that they liked, that, wasn't really a third unbiased party. August 26th, an investigator provided a name, citing an attorney in the general counsel's office. When Fisher looked at the Warner Brothers website, he found this individual was the only black attorney whose headshot was visible. In fact, the lawyer had nothing to do with the investigation. She handled matters for HBO, HBO Max, TBS, and TNT. Fisher wondered if naming her had been a simple mistake or a ploy to lull him into a sense of security, with the idea that she might be the same team as me simply by the way of her being a black person. Feeling even more distrustful, Fisher continued to tweet, writing September 4th that Hamada had thrown Whedon and Berg under the bus while covering for Johns. Unfortunately, it's not until I started talking about people specifically that Anita started to move. He said if they were going to continue to try to cover things up, I wasn't going to let that happen. Fisher then got a call from Burr. He said he was sorry the actors had an appalling experience on Justice League and hadn't been able to help, acknowledging that a bunch of straight white men had been running things. He said he hoped the studio would improve on that in the future. Burr said he had spoken to the investigator at length and truthfully. I let them know that it did mean a lot, Fisher said. I'm not beyond forgiveness when it comes to this kind of stuff. It was a very big thing for him to do. No one else in the process has reached out at all. So he acknowledges Bird apologized and he's fine with that. The studio, however, defended itself that day in a statement. At no time did Mr. Hamada ever throw anyone under the bus, as Mr. Fisher has falsely claimed or written any judgment about the Justice League production, which Mr. Hamada had no involvement. The company said Fisher had refused multiple attempts by the investigators to contact him. Fisher saw that as a smear. Except he was involved in, the reshots of Justice League. Hamada was. Not only that, in early October, top Warner Brothers executives spoke with Fisher and his team, including a rep from SAG-AFTRA. Fisher's reps confirmed that contact of call. So they did call. When Fisher pressed the question of how the investigator had come to provide the name of an in-house attorney who had nothing to do with the inquiry, the Warner Media executive on the call responded the investigator had just pulled the name off the internet. What? Christy Hauberger, head of communication at Warner Media and the company's top inclusion officer, said the studio's statement that Fisher had refused to incorporate the investigation had been based on third-hand information. Studio's communications department have been responding emotionally to Fisher's public allegations against Hamada. She said, adding, I think they believe that what they're saying is true. Fisher wondered why anyone at the studio who was ostensibly the subject of the investigation would comment at all. Pressed by Fisher, Hauberger declined to say who at the studio has approved the statement, but she said that she was furious when she read it. I have made it 100% crystal clear that everyone in the entire Warner Bros. Communication organization that not a goddamn word can be said about Ray Fisher. Hauberger said, if I catch anyone doing that, they're fired. Fisher said he asked for an apology repeatedly in the weeks that followed. Warner Media's kicked around some language that he fell short. Ultimately, Hauberger told Fisher, I don't think that if people said something they believe was true, that there's an apology needed. Really? What the thing is, this whole shit just keeps spiraling because Warner Brothers are just these arrogant assholes, and they're willing to fucking, drive the studio into the ground for these people that are fucking, they're dragging them down. Johns, he's showing that he isn't exactly the best person to run movies. If I remember correctly, he's the one who was responsible for the failure of Green Lantern. That movie. And now we got Justice League. What does he have to do for them to, kick him to the curb? But apparently they're gonna, go down with it. He's the fucking Titanic, and they're gonna go down with him. After the studio put out the statement accusing him of not cooperating what Fisher calls the hit piece, he asked for another investigator. Warner Media agreed to bring in Forrest, who they told him had to handle the investigation of ousted CEO Tahara. Fisher was initially optimistic, but says he again turned wary when Forrest, who is white, with the fact that she was an Obama appointee. Still, Fisher was somewhat optimistic because he believed Forrest's previous Tahari investigation had exposed alleged misconduct, but she told him that she hadn't completed the inquiry before Tahari left. Instead, he left after THR published an article about his entanglement with inspiring actress Charlotte Kirk. So, you gotta wonder what they would have done if he hadn't decided to leave. Initially, Fisher was told Forrest would work alongside the original investigator. He objected, and the original investigator withdrew. In December, Fisher said that he and SOG, AFTRA rep, had a final conversation with Forrest, during which he said remedial action had been taken, some of which he said Fisher had probably seen, but she was not explicit. She said further remedial action could be taken, but again did not offer specifics. But she told Fisher she did not find evidence of racial animus. Warner Brothers chairman Ann Sarnoff said in a recent interview that the investigator found the cuts made in the Justice League version of Justice League, Joss Whedon version of Justice League, were not racially motivated. But Forrest did not say that publicly. Sure. So pretty much all the black characters, besides Fisher and the actor who plays the father, which were cut to the bones. But sure. There's no racial bias at all, right? But they put in a white Russian family, right? Fuck off. These people are just so goddamn such dicks. What's the thing? Here's the thing. Warner Brothers has shown countless times that they're liars. They lied about Zach choosing, Whedon to come on to the set. That was bullshit, as, Zach said. They said he left because someone's daughter, which was true, but they then fucking turned around and butchered his movie, but then slapped his name on it, which, considering how they fucking didn't like him and didn't like his movies, why the hell would they put it on there, his name onto the movie, other than to fucking let him take the fall for it, or to, continue to get money from his fans who thought that was his movie, right? To Fisher, the information Forrest shared was so limited that it seemed the purpose was clear. She was only authorized by Warner Media to attempt to explain away anything to do with race. Warner's maintained it had complete confidence in the investigative process and her conclusions. Interesting how they only have ever referenced race. They haven't talked about how Gal Gadot was treated, or some of the other people on set was treated by Whedon. The evening of December 11th, Warner's issued a statement saying the investigation was finished in what Fisher called a Friday night news dump. Witnesses contacted him saying what had happened, but he had no answers. Asking what had happened, but he had no answers. A week later, he pressed Hugh Beggar and other execs for more information. They asked him to provide names of anyone who had told him they didn't get in closure. Fisher said he would not provide witnesses. Yeah. I wouldn't either. Sounds like, they're trying to go after anybody that complained. In February, he tweeted that Hamada said the dangerous kind of enabler, or said Hamada was the most dangerous kind of enabler, who had shown that he would blindly covered for his colleagues and worked with the studio to destroy black men's credibility and publicity, publicly delegitimize a very serious investigation with lies in the press. Fisher says he was referring to the September statement that Fisher had refused to cooperate with the investigation, which he feels must have known about in advance. Here's the thing. Fisher has nothing to gain from this. Literally. This was his first movie role that he had gotten, and he had no influence in Hollywood. Not like Gal Gadot, who had Wonder Woman, so he's already known and popular. Or Patty Jenkins. No, he was like a no-name, and they came and butchered his movie and treated everybody on set like shit. And he really has nothing to lose, to be honest, other than, to get out these fuckers who allowed this to happen. And Warner Brothers, being Warner Brothers, seem to give more fucking shit about these incompetent dumbasses who can't even fucking run this universe. I mean, they don't even have a set plan, because movies that they greenlit after they were gonna fucking shit all over Zach's, and pretty much gonna throw Zach's universe out the window, so they greenlit other movies with, say, like New Gods, with a black director, only to cancel that. So right now they don't really have a plan except for maybe like bringing in James Gunn and allowing him to do whatever the fuck he wants. That seems to be their plan so far. So you gotta wonder, why the hell are any of these people still employed? They can't fucking, do exactly what they're they're trying to justify their treatment of Zach because he didn't make enough money, and yet they're incompetent as hell. Zach's first 5 movies, the first 5 in the DCEU that have connections to Zach's have made more than all the rest. And so you gotta wonder why the hell these people are still fucking employed at Warner Brothers. 4 things had gone sour. Fisher was expected to play a supporting role as Cyborg in the planned movie The Flash. In June 2020, Fisher said he had a call from director Andy Muschietti that seemed positive, but this isn't his snag when Warner's framed a 2-week shot as a cameo, offering only a fraction of what Fisher said he should have been paid for appearing as Cyborg. By late September, he was upset by press reports that he was demanding to double his pay. Once again, if I recall correctly, didn't the original director that was going to make Flash, before they brought in Andy, say that Flash was supposed to play a critical role in the movie, and yet now it's coming to light that they have, he's cut down his role. Ultimately, the studio removed the Cyborg role from the movie. Citing a December 30 tweet, the studio said, given his statement that Mr. Fisher would not participate in the film associated with Mr. Harada, our production is now moving on. Of course, because you're willing to work with someone who fucking allowed mistreatment of actors on set, and you pretty much saying that you're gonna fucking go down with the shit. Fisher said he wasn't surprised. When I first spoke up, I assumed there was no way these guys would allow me to do my job in peace, he said. Now working at the ABC anthology series Women of the Movement, Fisher says he knew the struggle could be costly. I'm not so indebted to Hollywood that I haven't been willing to put myself out there. So pretty much says that he has nothing to lose, because he's not that well known in Hollywood. He doesn't have that much influence. I don't believe some of the people are fit for positions of leadership, said Fisher, who explained he's not looking for anyone to be fired. I don't want them excommunicated from Hollywood, but I don't think they should be in charge of hiring and firing of other people. Fisher knows that he's not going to win battle, but he feels a point has been made. If I can't get accountability, he said, at least I could get more people aware of who they're dealing with. So that's the thing. It's interesting, because he talks about they shouldn't be fit positions of leadership. So Johns, people defend him saying, oh, well, he makes comic books, or he's a good comic book writer, stuff like that. When he's shown that he's incompetent at being, at running movies. he allows actors to be treated poorly to, pander to this dick of a director. So yeah, he it doesn't really matter. If Whedon had not been a dickhead, he probably would have done whatever Whedon wanted him to. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just like John's. He's just he's just a doormat. He'll go and support anybody that, anybody like, Whedon. If it hadn't been Whedon, he just allows abuse. Johns just allows abuse to happen because he won't fucking stand up to these, directors. But he also says, at least I can make people aware of who they're dealing with. But that's the thing. Since this has come out, and they've talked about the mistreatment of Whedon by mistreatment of the cast by Whedon, past people who have worked with Whedon had come out, and we've are told how disgusting of a human being he is. The woman who played Buffy the Vampire Slayer talks about how Whedon tried to get her to get an abortion after she got pregnant. How I don't remember her name. One of them was underage at the time, and he locked himself in a room with her, and so now, on set he wasn't allowed to be alone in a room with her. And that's also what happened with Gal Gadot. They would not allow him alone with her after he locked her in a fucking room to try to get her to do what he wanted. It's blatantly obvious that there's, it's a piece of shit, and Johns enabled it, and Hamada enabled it. They were coming for his ass, but when, shit hits a fan, they throw Whedon under the bus. But, we're supposed to believe that Johns and Hamada will just, they'll suddenly treat everybody better now? No. They're just incompetent at what they do, and they don't give a damn. So, yeah. Oh, God. This is just one big shitstorm. Do I think that any of these assholes will ever suffer any consequences? Probably not. They'll probably just, if they do end up getting removed, they'll just put them somewhere else. They won't actually fire them. Yeah, so that was an article about Ray Fisher just talking about his experience on Justice. Oh, that was a long one. Oh, but if you like this video, just give it a like and subscribe to get more notification for more videos like this. I don't know, I don't do art videos on like articles, news articles, but whenever there's something that I kind of have I have thoughts on, and I want to kind of talk them out and get them straight and stuff like that, I'll probably end up making a video on them. So, yeah, that being said, you guys have a nice night, and stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.